Hello and welcome to the Franz van Kat interview. I'm Annette Young. It's just a week ago that captured Israeli soldier Gilad Shalit saw the light of day for the first time in more than 5 years. But securing his freedom from the Palestinian militant group Hamas meant the release of more than 1,000 prisoners, some of whom had languished in jail for decades. But it was a deal that caused much anguish among a number of Israelis, including the country's opposition leader, Tzipi Livni. The Israeli politician apparently opposed the agreement, and she is with me today. Tzipi Livni, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
First of all, why did you oppose the deal to secure Gilad Shalit?
First of all, I want to say that we all share the enthusiasm that we all had in looking at this young soldier coming back home. I'm a mother of a soldier myself in the army, so the happiness that we all felt is something that connects us all. So it's not a matter of opposition and coalition.
But you weren't happy with it.
I truly hope that the results of this deal with Hamas is not going to send a message to the extremists in the region that Israel cannot handle terror.
So you felt that this deal, and this is the reason why you vehemently opposed it, would strengthen Hamas, but at the same time weaken Fatah?
The best thing to do now is not to relate to the deal because it's over. So it's not for me to say now whether to oppose or not. But the most important issue now is to work in order to minimize the damage in a way, because it is clear that Hamas is getting stronger. I mean, they can say to the Palestinians, okay, we are the ones that release the prisoners. I see all these prisoners, all these terrorists, taking these green flags symbolizes that they are thanking Hamas for getting them out, and this is something that we cannot afford. So now the real issue is what next, and I believe that in order to minimize the damage or to reduce the way Hamas is being perceived now, we need to work with the legitimate Palestinian government, with the pragmatics, in order to strengthen them in accordance to the Israeli interest.
Why did you keep silent, though, about your opposition in the lead up to his release?
Clear. My position was clear. I was a member of the former government. I was the foreign minister there, and we refused basically to the same deal. And I said it publicly even before the elections in Israel, and maybe I even paid the political price because vast majority of Israelis supported this.
But you weren't saying it in the days leading up to his release.
It was one day in which the Israeli government made the decision, and I said that it's not a political issue and I'm going to respect the deal. Because in a way, after 5 years, it was clear that my decision was not to make the same deal. And I was, I refused to call the Israeli Prime Minister to release him for any price. At any price. But I thought that after 5 years, when there is this kind of feeling that it affects even, the understanding of the Israelis that are being united. So I said, okay, this is something that the government, it's a decision. I need to respect it, but yet there is something that needs to be done the day after. And this is not only toward the Palestinians and the legitimate Palestinian government, but also internally. We need to have this internal discussion in Israel. What happened hopefully we are not going to face this kind of situation, but we need to have this discussion. Because the government was, in a way, was being forced to release Gilad Shalit in this price. Now,
you've been accused of being the invisible opposition leader. Did you do the right thing in not joining Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government and thus making it a more moderate government who might have in fact sat down and negotiated with President Mahmoud Abbas?
The choices in politics sometimes are between bad options, especially in Israel. The idea is to keep the alternative for peace in Israel. And by joining this coalition, the meaning is that I'm going to be part of something that I don't believe in this ideology or policy. And I offered Netanyahu more than once to change the coalition.
But has it come at great cost?
Sorry?
Has it come at great cost, having made that decision? Do you still stand by that decision?
Yes. even though, as I said, I offered Netanyahu more than once to change the coalition, because the idea of a dialogue with the Palestinians is not just about how can we relaunch negotiations, but is it going to be effective negotiations? And we need to have a more balanced coalition, having the base of the coalition, having Likud, Netanyahu, and me with Kadima as balancing the coalition or not, or creating a new coalition and not just adding Kadima to a majority that are not supporting my views and Kadima's views about the future of the State of Israel.
How would you have done things differently if indeed you'd become Prime Minister? Would you, for instance, have frozen settlement building in the West Bank and particularly in East Jerusalem?
I would have continued the negotiations from where it stopped. We negotiated with the Palestinians in the former government. I was the chief negotiator on the Israeli side. It was stopped because of the elections in Israel and should and could be continued the day after the elections. Netanyahu made his own choices. At first not to say the two states word and then to say, but yet I think that what is missing now is trust between both sides. They blame each other. They are not willing to pay even the smallest political price in order to relaunch negotiations, not just to have a dialogue for a dialogue, but serious negotiations in order to end the conflict.
Israel seems to be losing more friends quickly than it's making enemies at the moment, isn't it?
Unfortunately, yes.
Do you point the finger at the current government for that?
Partially. I think that there is a process of delegitimization of the State of Israel. We have the extremists in the region that are not willing to accept our existence. I mean, Hamas, for example, are those that are not willing to accept the right of Israel to exist. So there is no hope for peace with them, no matter what we do or say. But on the other side, you have the moderates or the pragmatics, and we need to rebuild the camp of pragmatics. And this is something that the Israeli government is not doing, unfortunately. So there are some places that, or some extremists that Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, for them it's not important what we do, it's because we are there. But I believe that in acting, when we see the Arab Spring, when we see the trends in the region, we need to have a different policy.
Now, do you feel that your political views have changed over the last decade? And if so, how and why?
No. I know that this is the image, thinking that I was born, to a family. Yes.
Very strong
No, I know,
Zionist.
yes, I know why you ask this question. But I'll tell you about my first day in politics. I was born in a very political home. My parents were part of the Irgun. They fought against the British mandate in Israel. For them, they believed in the greater Israel and in the rights of the Jewish people on the entire land. And in '95, few weeks before Prime Minister Rabin was murdered, the Israeli society was divided into two different camps. One was the camp of the land of Israel. These were my friends on right wing, talking about their love to the land, and I felt exactly like them. But my understanding was that the vision is about the state of Israel, Jewish democratic state, having these values living in harmony. So we need to divide the land, even though we have the rights on the entire land. And then left wing were my other friends, believing that just waiting for the new Middle East to fall on their shoulders, wearing their best T-shirt and jeans with glass of wine. And I was looking at Oslo Agreement and I said, okay, it's not the real agreement. They postponed most of the core issues to the future. So since the beginning, I believed that in order to keep the values of Israel living in harmony, we need to divide the land, but we need to do it in a different manner. So this is what I said. But the reason for me to be in politics is to represent these views.
Let's just bring this forward, though. I mean, the landscape of the region has dramatically changed since the beginning of the year. Nobody could predict what's happened, but obviously this is another issue in terms of Israel facing further diplomatic isolation. What does the Arab Spring mean for the Jewish state?
We don't know yet. It can be there are two different possibilities. it's a kind of a crossroad. One is that the young people that took the streets, those that are fighting for their own freedoms and democracy, they are going to win future elections and change the region, and we can see more democracies. But nobody give us the assurances that these are going to be the results. And the other way is to have the extremists abusing the democratic system without embracing the values of democracy. And the meaning is that we are going to see more extremists, and this is something that is going to affect the acceptance of the State of Israel as homeland of the Jewish people in the region. And this can affect also the possibility to end the conflict with the Palestinians, because any Palestinian leader needs the support of the Arab world, and he needs strong and pragmatic leaders to support them in making the historical reconciliation with Israel. And having all these changes, for me, this led me to an understanding that the sooner we implement the idea of two states, the better. Because I don't want the Israeli-Palestinian conflict to be part of the agenda in future elections in Egypt.
Tzipi Livni, I'm so sorry, that's all we have time for.
Oh, okay.
Thank you so much for being with us. And that's it for this edition of the Franz Van Kat interview. Stay tuned for more news and headlines, which are coming up shortly.